Joining me this morning is Dennis Hathcock. Dennis, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. We are here to talk about the routes that Buford could have taken the morning of the ambush. And I know you're really familiar with the area and thought you might shed some light on all this.
I'll try to.
Okay. The part that has always puzzled me is that there were at least three good accesses by the highway that he could have taken and increased his speed in getting to Hollis Jourdan's beer tavern there on 45. Of course, he could have taken Highway 64 down to 45 in Selmer, and he could have just ran wide open. Even going south on the route that he initially took, when he got to Highway 142, he could have turned to the west and been into south of Selmer pretty quick, and then got on 45 and been down there quickly. And then, of course, he drove across it, got down to Highway 57, and instead of getting on the highway and turning west, he went straight on down to New Hope Road. Now, does that sound logical to you that he would have done that?
Well, no, because at that time there was a little section of it that was it wasn't even gravel. It was almost a field road. It had some gravel on it, but I mean, there would have been no earthly reason to have gone in that way. It connected New Hope Road with Highway 57. He could have gone when he got to Highway 57. He could have went straight across, up the hill, gone into Mickey, went down there, and there was two different roads he could have took over to New Hope Church. One of them went to New Hope Church, and then there's what's the name of it? Something Davis
Road.
Yeah, road that would have come out right there. I mean, there's there's even more ways than that he could have gone.
I'll correct myself. Davis Yancey Road.
Yeah, Davis Yancey Road. I mean,
the thing that got me was that, just looking at the map, there are so many routes that he could have gone where he would never pass that church.
Right. If he'd have went to Davis Yancey, it wouldn't even been close to the church. If he'd have went down like a normal person would have went, 64 to 45 and down, which he could have run. You know how he drove. He could have run 110, 15 miles an hour. There was no traffic on the road at that time. He could have been there shooting 10 minutes.
Well,
or later.
I looked it up, and for instance, if he had taken 64 and 45, and we know that Buford always drove fast, he just has a history of that.
Right.
And if he had driven 100 miles an hour on 64 and 45, which would have been easily possible, he would have been at Hollis Jourdan's beer tavern there on 45 in just 15 minutes. But let's say that he is going as fast as he can on the route that he took. Now, like you say, it was some dirt roads, some gravel roads. It was very unimproved back in those days. Let's say that he was driving even 45 miles an hour. It would have taken him 23 minutes to get to the same place. So
right.
I guess my feeling is, why did he go that way? Why would you want to risk damaging your cars if you were in a hurry and driving fast? Why would you want to risk damaging your cars when you know another route is faster?
Well, the other thing is, how in the world would you know which way he was going to go?
Yeah. I mean, were these guys clairvoyant? Did they How do they figure out which way? That's always going to be a question that people ask.
Right. How would they know to be behind the church at New Hope?
Sure. It's just one of the many mysteries that surround the Pusser legend. You can get into so many areas and find so many things where Buford's story falls apart. And it wouldn't be so bad if it was just this one thing. But, I don't want to get into all this right now, but you just look at the history of that ambush, the mysterious call that Carl received there at the courthouse, the phone call that was later made to the Pusser residence, where only he and Pauline knew what that call was about, allegedly. So we have no idea what happened there. Then there's Levon Plunk, overhearing the gunshot come from the house. Ward Moore, Carl calling him, having him go down to the Pusser residence because there was a argument that was taking place, and Carl saying that they were about to kill each other. And then, of course, just right before all this, you had Barbara Bivens and Shirley Smith, talking about overhearing Pauline and Buford in a discussion out in the parking lot at the Old Hickory Grill, and her threatening to leave him and report his corruption, and him threatening to kill her if she did. And then beyond that, there's you and Johnny watching the gun exchange just prior to the.
Well, then there's Diane.
Good morning. Be sure and hit that subscribe button for notifications of future videos, and be sure and leave your comments at the end of this video.
Well, then there's Diane.
You're right, Diane.
Right there in the middle, right at home.
And saying she saw Buford put Pauline in the car.
Right. And she told the same story to no telling how many people. And everybody's just like, it's just like me when I went to the FBI to tell them what I knew a little bit after that. They just laughed it off, thought I was crazy, They didn't pay one bit of attention to what I told them. And it's like her, Diane. Of course, he'd already laid the groundwork for her that she is on drugs, and she is this, and she is that.
Y'all painted her out to be a rebellious child.
Right.
But
of course, the TBI, I mean, not the TBI, but the FBI, when I went to them, of course, they knew who I was when I told them. They thought, well, this is just something that he's trying to make up to cover up, because at that time they just knew that it was had something to do with the state line and all that bunch of bull. So.
Yeah, and something that I pointed out before is that the state line had been dead for 17 months up at that point. Right. So it's kind of like, who was this mysterious faction that was coming after Buford at that point?
Right.
But it's like I say, when you take all those points and you start putting them together and crisscrossing them, I mean, the whole story just does not make sense. I mean, you can look at any one part of it, or you can look at all of it as a combination and say, there's something that's not quite right here.
There's no way that especially a person that was from here could listen to that story and know that there wasn't something bad wrong with it. Now, if you see the movie and you live in Wisconsin or somewhere, you might say, well, yeah, that's what happened. But
I was suckered in at first. And believe
you were from Arkansas, though.
Yeah, and I live 450 miles away. That was enough at that time that I just didn't hear any stories, didn't hear any news about it, other than like later seeing the Roger Mudd interview and all this, in which Buford was basically telling his story, and there wasn't anybody saying anything else. And, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have a lot of the communication tools we have today.
Well, have you ever heard anyone else tell any of the stories other than Buford and Petey Plunk backing him up? And he didn't even do that all the time, but part of the time he did.
Yeah.
And well, I've told you about Petey.
Yeah. It's like the thing that people have to remember is that McNairy County was a small sheriff's office at that time, and Buford was his own public information officer. So he could tell any story any way that he wanted to. And I think it goes back to Bill Way being one of those reporters that dared challenge him at the time. And, he just cut Bill off right at the knees and never would work with him again.
Right.
So I don't know. But, the purpose of this video was just to point out that there were so many different routes that Buford could have taken. So many that were so much faster, and a lot of which would never have taken him anywhere near the church where the stand push party was. And people need to understand that it was just a miracle, apparently, that he happened to take that route, and they happened to be stationed there waiting on him.
But what they didn't count on, Mike, they didn't know out of this whole deal was that road had just been rechurched. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, just like
that same day.
Yeah.
And clean the ditches out, or you'd have never seen
it's
a lot of the stuff that showed up.
It's amazing. It probably, had it not been resurfaced and everything, the evidence would have been a lot harder to spot.
Right. You would have never seen it.
So, at any rate, well, Dennis, I appreciate you being here today. I just wanted to get that out. We're doing a Saturday short. So, next week, we'll get into this a lot deeper.
Okay.
All right. Fine. Hey, thanks for being here.
Thank you.